Not bad. I know I've been doing a lot of baseball content lately, but I'm happy to talk some football. So let's do it.
Very nice. And then to all you Forward fans out there, welcome back to another episode of Fourth and Frames, the fantasy football podcast for fantasyandframes.com. We got a special episode this week. We're going to call it our mixed bag show. We're just going to talk about a lot of everything, from football to more football. And we might throw in some pro wrestling here and there. But you know what? Before we get into all that, I want to do a little intro for these two guys we have on tonight. Huge fans of theirs, been listening to them for years. When we talk about what sets people apart in this business, one of the things that I think is the most important is consistency. And then you follow that up with hard work. So consistency and hard work. And like I said, I've been looking up to these guys since I got into the biz back in 2017. Going back to consistency, when I think of consistency in fantasy football, I think of three people. I think one of Bob Lung, and then the next two guests we have on right here. I present to you Mr. Michael Hauff and Anthony Cervino, hosts of the FF Faceoff podcast and live stream. Gents, welcome to Fourth and Frames. How you all doing?
What's going on, guys?
Good, man. Happy to be here.
Very nice. As we do for all our episodes here this season, here on Fourth and Frames, we want to do a little getting to know you segment, just because, for the listeners and the viewers who may not have heard or seen you guys, which I doubt that there are many out there, but just for the sake of, the show, we'll just go with that. According to Twitter, you guys started your FF Faceoff account in 2017. I want to say that you guys had been doing shows before then, or am I mistaken with that?
I think it was around then, wasn't it?
Yeah, I would say it's right around then, because at first we were part of the Gridiron Experts network of podcasts, and then we kind of started branching out into our own, because we wanted to do more than one show a week, and we wanted to take a different direction on things and get a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, they basically said at one point in Gridiron Experts, they said, all right, some of you guys pair up, because we're going to just start doing some podcasts. And it'll be one day a week, just like Anthony said. And I don't know how that happened, how Anthony and I got together. I mean, we talked a little bit, prior. But I count blessings that I got Anthony. So,
yeah. So I think it was initially over WrestleMania weekend, I think, when we first really hit it off.
Probably was.
I told you to talk about wrestling. Let's go. Which WrestleMania weekend are we? This is
here we go.
2017. Was this Dallas? Was this Dallas WrestleMania?
I mean, was it Dallas? No.
No.
Dallas? What the hell was that year? Well, now you get me curious.
We'll think about that in a second. So you can first of all,
was it WrestleMania? Was it 30?
Oh, so you were in New Orleans.
Might have been 30.
That was
might have been. Was that 31? We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. So, of course, you can find Anthony at The Real NFL Guru on Twitter, Mike at the FF Realist. And let's just get down to business, guys. Let's start with you, Anthony, since, Mike, you've been on the show before, and Mike will get back to you. Sorry, no preferences there. How, Anthony, what got you into fantasy football to begin with, just as a fan, and then wanting to actually get into writing and talking and doing all this stuff for it?
Man, I've been into fantasy football, I would say, since I was like 10 or 11 years old, and I'm 36, and I wasn't playing, but my stepdad and my uncle were both in a fantasy league, and I didn't know what the hell it was, but they used to bring me to the draft. I was really into football and other sports at the time, but I was really a football guy, since I remember the NFL films of the Follies with Steve Sable as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
So I was always into it, and I would go to the drafts, and I feel like the first time I actually partnered, I don't know how old I was, and I don't even think I paid for half the team because we were with family. But I think it was like right around 1998, the Terrell Davis, Jamal Adams, or Jamal Anderson year.
Okay.
When they were both the top running backs, the top picks, one got hurt, and the next year, the other one got hurt. Right. They were like my top picks in the first 2 years.
The post Super Bowl meeting, the year after they went to the Super Bowl, and those Falcons and the Broncos, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So, Mike, what about you? How did you get started in fantasy football? What drew you to it?
Well, I mean,
that it is what it is.
It's funny. Me and Anthony said it on the show, but it's true. I mean, without NFL, there is no fantasy. You know,
Right.
as much as people would like to lead you down a different path. But
Get me started.
I've loved football. I love football forever. When I was a little kid, I would read about two things. As weird as it sounds, I would read about presidents and I would read about football. That's it. It was always my thing. My cousin was a diehard Niner fan because of Joe Montana, so I watched the Niners because of him. And then when Montana went to the Chiefs, he left for the Chiefs, and me and my brother stuck around with the Niners ever since. Been Niner faithful, and getting into the actual fantasy industry. I mean, that's kind of it's a deeper story, I guess. I found out my father had Parkinson's, and my grandfather passed away like right around the same time. And I needed some sort of creative outlet. And I was always told I was good at writing and this and that, but I was never interested in anything to write about. But I always knew, well, I could write about football and I like fantasy.
Right.
And all of a sudden I stumble onto Twitter. I talked to Dale DeMott from Eat Sleep Fantasy, started there, then rolled on over to Gridiron Experts and found Anthony, that sweet little face over there. And that's it.
What about you, Anthony? How did you get your start in the biz?
In the industry, I don't know. In my 20s, I was in the car business, sales, management, all that good stuff, in and out of dealerships. And then I ended up getting into a life-changing car accident. It wasn't bad. I survived, obviously, but I ended up getting a cervical fusion out of it. And it's like, shit, like I'm not happy what I'm doing. I need to pursue something I love. And I'm like, let me see what it takes to get into the NFL business. And fantasy is not really like what I want to do. I like the Colin Cowards of I just like the general NFL sports talk. But I felt that fantasy was my quickest foot in the door. So I started writing news blurbs at Fantasy Pros. Okay. And then that graduated to, I think I had a small stint at Roto Baller, and then I went right into Gridiron Experts, and the rest is history.
It's funny. I started this, I say blog, but we're a website now, but I started the Fantasy and Frames blog back in 2017. Basically, I had gotten laid off, and I was bugging my wife all the time, talking to her about football this, football that. Oh, listen to this news, listen to that. And she's like, sweetie, I love the fact that you're passionate about this. I think that there are people that would like this to hear about this a little bit more than I would. I'm like, okay, that's the nice way of saying, shut up, Jorge, go about your business.
Fair.
So I started the blog, and going into 2018, I wanted to expand. I wanted to get more writers. I wanted to just really start blowing this thing up. But I wanted to get some experience in the industry also. And so it just so happens I reached out to Mike Patch, over at Gridiron Experts. And it's funny, we have this connection here. And he let me do a few articles here and there. And it really taught me a lot about writing. And I'll always be thankful for that opportunity that he gave me. And it just helped make me a better writer. And, how he would instruct me how to frame things and how to really approach the writing style really helped in a lot of the work I've done going forward. So I'm very thankful for that.
So you knew him as Mike Patch before Riggs, because it took me four years to know his real name.
I knew him as Mike Riggs first. Yes, absolutely. This is around the time. This is the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Mm-hmm. So I knew him as Riggs, and it wasn't until I want to say a couple years later that I knew him as Mike Patch. And I think the three of us, we did a podcast. We had podcasts for Fantasy Data last year, and so
brief stint.
Right. So that's when he emailed me, and I'm like, oh, Mike Patch. Oh, it's you. Your real name's not Riggs. How about that? Fantastic. So no, he's a great guy. I love him over there. The guys, this is what I love hearing. I love hearing everybody's story of how they came up. Truth be told, Todd, when he came in here to Fantasy and Frames, he was doing baseball for us last year, and then he took some time off, and he came back. He started doing football. But I'll never forget the first time I was introduced to him. He messages me at 4:00 in the morning, and he's like, "Hey, here's my writing sample. Here's what I got with this, that with that." I'm like, "Okay, first of all, this guy's pretty passionate." Second, why the hell are you messaging me at 4:00 in the morning? He's like, oh, well, I live in, the West Coast, so I'm a late, I like, doing stuff at night. I'm like, okay, cool. I immediately call up the guy who does our baseball stuff here, who heads it up here, Aaron Pags. I texted him at 4:00 in the morning, like, dude, wake up. You have to read this guy's stuff. And the rest is history. But going back to what I was saying earlier, I love hearing about everyone's passion for the industry and where they come from, because it makes you relatable. Hearing about this stuff, it makes all of us relatable. I think for a lot of people out there, it feels like, many of us, I'm not included because I haven't paid my dues yet. I'm working in the process of doing that. But I feel like there are a lot of people out there that they kind of are put on that pedestal, and you kind of like want to know how they get there. How did they earn that right to be where they're at? What's the course that took them to where they're going? And I really want to know what got them there, because I think anybody who's trying to make it in the industry, who's trying to grow, it's good to hear these stories, because it makes you realize you're just like everybody else trying to work your way up. And it's all about the connections you make and the quality of people that you know. And that's why, like I said earlier in the intro, I've been a fan of you guys for years. Love hearing all your stuff. The minute you started incorporating Lord Alfred Hayes into your drops, I knew I was in love. You guys are fantastic. And anybody who's watching or listening, if you're not following them, follow them, listen to their pods, watch their shows. They're fantastic. They interact. They're how you do it right. And by the way, the work you guys did for the Hayden Hurst Foundation last year, that podathon, can't speak enough of that.
Year 2 is coming up, and I'll just say, listen, if anybody's getting into podcasting or any kind of fantasy, whatever, I got lucky. I got lucky a lot in life with a lot of different things, and finding Anthony was definitely a lucky thing. But really, with Anthony, it's really, I would say, what I would suggest to anybody who's getting into any kind of podcasting, any kind of fantasy, if you find somebody, stick with them, because you might not initially have something, but if you stick with somebody, you build enough chemistry to the point where I know what Anthony's going to do, whether I love it or despise it. I know what he's going to do before he does it. And I'm sure he's the same way. So I would suggest always stick with it. Find somebody.
No, I'm pretty good at what you do. So.
Find somebody.
You're the only one despising.
Find somebody, stick with it, stay in your lane, and just barrel down the walls with that guy. And that's it. That guy or that gal. There
you go. Fantastic. All right, well, let's get into the show for today. NFL offseason. Now, it's debatable, is there such an offseason? I think all of us can say that there's not an offseason. There's always stuff to talk about. But for the general fan, there is. For the NFL fan, there is. And I preface this by saying it doesn't have to be from a fantasy perspective. It can be from just an NFL fan's perspective. But if you want to keep it fantasy, fine, by all means. Let's talk about our favorite parts of the NFL offseason. Let me start off. Mine is free agency. I just love free agency. There's, the excitement. Ooh, is he going to go there? Is he going to go there? Is he going to get cut? Is he going to get traded? Like, what's all this stuff that's going to happen? And Anthony, for the Game Day NFL, you today, I believe, put out your free agent rankings, correct?
Yes, I did. And like you, I'm a big free agency guy.
Thank you. We're actually adding one more guest temporarily to the stream right now. I think you guys both know him, Mr. Michael Bauer.
Oh, what's going on?
This handsome devil.
Wait, who's this guy?
How you doing? DM Bauer, never heard of him. Yeah, I know. So we're just talking about our favorite parts of the NFL offseason, Mike, and we're talking about free agency. And so Anthony put out a rankings list of all his free agent all the free agent rankings over at the Game Day NFL. And Anthony, it's good to hear that you also share my passion for free agency. Who are some free agents that are just jumping out to you? You're going down the list, and I have it pulled up here. You have your Dax, your Allen Robinsons, but you got some linemen in there. You got your Leonard Williams, your Trent Williams, your Brandon Sheriffs. If we're looking, let's say, in the top 15 right now, who's
let me pull the actual rankings up.
Okay, sorry for a second.
Okay,
Trent Williams going back to the Niners, so I'll just say that.
No, I'm up. I'm here. I'm good.
Okay, yeah. So who's somebody that I think we can all say that Dak Prescott is a pretty important free agent if you're a Cowboys fan, which I know you are. But who's somebody that maybe the community may not have thought about that they should be paying attention to on this list?
I feel like this is a light year for offensive linemen, especially at the tackle position. So somebody like Taylor Moton, or maybe I'm butchering the name, from the Carolina Panthers. He's younger than 30 years old, where I have Trent Williams a little bit higher on my list, but he's 32, 33 years old, where Moton, he's going to go somewhere. He could play both sides, and he's one of the top tackles. This is a wide receiver and a defensive back heavy free agent class. Also a guy like, speaking of safeties, Anthony Harris from the Minnesota Vikings, Justin Simmons from the Denver Broncos. They are the two top safeties. And yes, I'm a Cowboys fan. Do they have the cap space to bring one in? Because they have about 3 defensive backs, Xavier Woods being one of them, Chide Uwuze, one of their cornerbacks. Jordan Lewis, another defensive back. They have a lot of defensive backs are about to hit the open market. Are they going to make a splash and go for one of the top guys? Where I think Dallas should go is one of my favorite safeties in this class is Marcus May.
Oh, the Jet.
Absolutely.
He played pretty well last season for the New York Jets. Free safety, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that screams value. And Dallas could probably get him on the cheap too, because he's not, like you said, one of the bigger known safeties, but he's definitely a solid player in that regard. I think we just lost Mike Bauer. Go ahead. You're saying?
Even guy like a John Johnson from the Rams, not a marquee name, but he's been a solid defensive back on that team. They also have Darius Williams and Troy Hill. So the Rams, who are in cap hell, they acquired Matthew Stafford, and everybody wants to anoint this team the next Super Bowl team. They have a lot of defensive pieces they're about to lose, and they probably can't re-sign. Richard Sherman's another one that jumps out to me. He's like Ndamukong Suh, who's another free agent. At this point in their career, they're mercenaries. I think they're chasing championships, and a guy like Richard Sherman, would he take a little bit less? Maybe San Francisco wants to go younger at the position. Maybe we see Richard Sherman in Dallas. Maybe Richard Sherman finds his way to Green Bay or another contender, because Green Bay's Kevin King's a free agent.
The very same Kevin King who pulled on a jersey and cost the Packers a first down to go to the the Super Bowl, rather. That Kevin King?
That exact one.
That's a very good point. Mike, what's your favorite part of the NFL offseason?
Now, are you talking to Bauer or are you talking to me?
Sorry about that. We had this problem last time. Bauer, let's go Bauer.
Yeah, so I'm sorry about that. My cat unplugged my router. So
your cat?
Yes. Yeah.
Happens
so believable. We're like your high school teachers in high school.
The cat or the wife? Which one?
My cat, because the router's behind our TV downstairs and she likes to sleep back there sometimes. So what is my favorite part of the off season? When all the speculation ends and something actually starts happening. Because right now we're in that part where it's just like, well, this guy's going here and he's not playing for this team and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, you know what? That's great. And you have all these clickbaity articles out there and everything on Twitter and everybody's an expert. I can't wait until something actually happens and the smoke screens are gone. And aside from that, rookie drafts are great too. That's my second favorite part.
Nice. What about you, Mike?
Listen, I'm a hopeless romantic. I'm an emotional guy. I still love the NFL draft. I love that day one. I still refer to it as day one. I know now it's a primetime spectacle and it's all the whatever, but I love watch. I mean, it's funny. It's like, you think about like American Idol or, The Voice, these reality TV shows, and somebody wins. Every single person who's drafted in that first round. Listen, some first round picks don't pan out. We know this, but in that moment, it's a culmination of everything that they've been doing. So I love watching that, and really I love, just like Bauer was saying, I love that the speculation ends. Now we know player A is going here. Now we all thought he'd be the greatest player alive, but does that situation that he is now going to, does that fit? So now you're starting to fit, do you fit the square hole, the round peg, this and that, blah, blah, blah. So I love the whole draft aspect. I think it's fantastic. I mean, to me, I love every step of NFL offseason, but the draft would be number one.
With everything that's going on with the pandemic and the job that the NFL did last year with the draft, what was your opinion of that? Do you think that went really smoothly in terms of production?
I think everything. Honestly, listen. Nothing was perfect about what went on last season, and it's uncharted territory. But I think the draft, more than anything else with the NFL during that year, was spot on.
What about you, Todd? What do you like the most?
I actually have to agree with Mike. My favorite part is the NFL draft. Unfortunately, though, as the resident Saints fan, we haven't had a lot of first-round picks recently, so that is a downfall for it. But other than that, I would say my other thing that I love about the offseason is in season, things change week to week. Players get injured, target shares change, running back carries change, like all that changes. During the offseason, you can really get a feel for your players. You can get a feel for who you want to draft. You can get all your stats put together in a notebook and that type of stuff. And on a in-season thing, when it's changing weekly, you can't do that necessarily. But during the offseason, you can really gather your info. So I would say that's probably my favorite part other than draft day.
I think Mother Nature hates me during the regular season because the amount of paper I go through is ridiculous. Whereas the off season, Mother Nature can't wait to for that to happen. All right, well, let's talk about some players. Speaking of drafts, let's go. From last year's draft, players who are going to be making the jump into their second year. Anthony, let's go back to you. Who's a player? Okay, and I'm going to make this difficult for you because I know you're a Cowboys fan. So the answer is not CeeDee Lamb, but who is a player that you, in their second year, you think is going to make the jump from a fantasy perspective? Let's put it like that.
And the answer cannot be CeeDee Lamb. You're saying
the answer cannot. That's too easy for me. That's like saying Mike is like Brandon Ayuk. Like, no, you can't. I'm sorry, you can't.
Damn.
Can't take. I know.
Mike, Jalen Reagor.
Yeah.
Well, I personally think Rager is going to be better for NFL football than fantasy football.
Freddie Mitchell 2.0.
No, he could catch the ball. He could actually catch it. So
Freddie got 4th and 26, man. He caught that ball for that first down.
He did then thank his hands for being so great.
So who's going to make that jump? A player at wide receiver that really sticks out to me is T. Higgins. T. Higgins played really well with Joe Burrow in year one. We're going to assume A.J. Green's gone. That's going to leave them with Tyler Boyd. Now, I see a lot of mock drafts with Jamar Chase going to the Cincinnati Bengals, but that makes zero sense when your franchise quarterback tore his knee up because you can't protect him. So I have Penei Sewell going to the Cincinnati Bengals. They're going to kick Jonah Williams to the right side. And I think this line's going to be better. And I think we see a big leap out of T. Higgins as the number one wide receiver on this football team.
That's a very good point. What about you, Mike?
Which one?
No, we've established this. Bauer is Bauer and Mike is Mike.
Oh, okay. All right. My apologies then.
No, you're fine. It's fine.
See, I had the same mistake.
Listen, if I can't go with, Brandon Ayuk, that's fine. But one guy that I think is obvious is going to make a jump. This is obvious, and I really don't care. But I think DeAndre Swift is a player who's going to make a jump. And this was a player who even did well, last year for the most part. What was he available in? Where are you, DeAndre? 13 games, 521 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns. But this is a team that's going to run the ball. This is a team that they traded Matthew Stafford. They're bringing Jared Goff. They are completely transitioning. You look at the coach biting off kneecaps. That sounds like a ground and pound kind of team to me. Then you bring in Anthony Lynn as the offensive coordinator. You're bringing Deuce Staley as a running backs coach. Not to mention you hear the comments Deuce Staley makes about DeAndre Swift. Now, listen, one thing I want to put out there, which aggravates the absolute shit out of me. Well, I mean, a lot of things do on Twitter. But, I'm not going to be naive and not act like the Lions aren't going to bring any other running backs in. Like, it's only those guys that are currently there, and that's it. Like, Chris Carson is not going to be signed by Seattle. So, therefore, DJ Dallas and Rashad Penny are going to be like Jim frickin' Brown this year. Drop the confetti.
I've already seen that.
100%. Like 100% right there.
Guys,
That's the
Rashad Penny
realest
thing is
thing
out
I've
of
heard all
control.
day.
free agency, the league New Year starts on St. Patrick's Day, which is kind of rude because I'll be half in the bag when the league starts.
Nice.
And then after that, you have the NFL draft. So guys are going to join teams, but even if guys join teams and they happen to join Detroit, I still think DeAndre Swift can make a jump given the amount of work that they want to give this kid. It's all going to be a matter of him staying healthy. I think listen, he finished in PPR. Where are you? He's somewhere 18th. He's going to be in that top 12. Guaranteed. I said that.
Mike, what if they sign Frank Gore?
Oh my God, no, don't do that. I love Frank Gore. Anything about Frank Gore. But listen, if they sign Frank Gore, it's going to be a problem. But beyond that,
he's the number 5 leading rusher since 1960.
Listen, what was that stat? Anthony, son of a bitch. Oh, no, hold on. No, wait. We're going to stop the show.
I don't know. That was a good stat from 1960. He's pulling
he's full of it. He's
still going.
There is a stat that since 2015 or something to that effect, and I'll find the stat before the show's out. He is 5th in rushing yards since like 2015 or something like that. So Anthony, suck it. Yeah, whatever. First ballot Hall of Famer. Have some respect.
All right. I love seeing the chemistry. It's fantastic. Todd, I gotta curse you out more and more often. Todd, speaking of which, Todd, who are you looking at this year? Second year breakout.
I'm gonna stick with the wide receiver position, and for me, it's Gabby Davis. He played all 16 games last season, 35 receptions on 62 targets, just short of 600 yards, and he had 7 touchdowns with a 15.4 ADOT. The 7 touchdowns is something that sticks out to me. You can't always count on touchdowns, but this dude had 3 touchdowns called back because of penalties last year. So the fact that he could have scored 10, says a lot about his touchdown potential. Not only that, but on 20-plus yard targets among rookies, he led the league in 5 touchdowns. Also, no drops with 20-plus yard targets. EPA per target is another stat that it's actually relatively new to the fantasy community. It takes a lot into account. That's where you're positioned on the field, how many rushing yards you have per carry, how many yards you have per catch. It takes all that into account. And Gabby Davis, among wide receivers with a minimum of 50 targets last season, was number 9 with 0.706 EPA. Just to put that in perspective, we all know how good Justin Jefferson was last year, and he was actually number 7 on that list. So that says a lot about Gabby Davis. When we are looking at wide receivers who can make a breakout in their year 2, you're really looking at teams that produce in 3 wide receiver sets. And the Bills, they ran 738 offensive plays last year. 72% of those came in 11 personnel. And that's 3 wide receiver sets. So, and that was actually 4th most in the NFL. So that, with John Brown not coming back, that to me says that Gabby Davis is in the game plan. He may have only had a 10% target share last year, but considering in the red zone he had a 15% target share, that says a lot about his chemistry with Josh Allen. Not only that, but the dude was great in separation. He was top 20 in average cushion and target separation according to Player Profiler, and that had to do with a lot of Josh Allen escaping the pocket and him connecting with Gabriel Davis. I just love Gabriel Davis here. The first 8 games.
I'm noticing that. I'm noticing you're a fan.
Yeah, the first 8 games of the season, he had 15 receptions, 200 yards, 13 yards per catch, only 2 TDs. The last 8 games of the season, 20 receptions, almost 400 yards, almost 20 yards per catch, and 5 touchdowns. And considering we already talked about that he had 3 touchdowns called back, this dude's a stud. Not only that, does he not only play outside, but he also plays in the slot. When we all know Cole Beasley is 31 years old now.
Don't be taking away my Cole Beasley. Don't.
He is 31.
Don't phase him out just yet.
31 is not a young age for a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Gabby Davis had 14 targets, 10 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown from the slot. So he can play outside. He can play in the slot. He does it all for the Bills.
I don't hate that call.
I think what helps Bills running backs collectively is the fact that, or the Bills wide receivers collectively,
Here
is
we
that their
go.
running backs average -3 carries per game.
Here it
Here
is.
we go.
In
Wouldn't
the
be a
Brian
show with
Daboll
Anthony
offense.
if he wasn't squatting over the running backs in Buffalo. There we go.
Bauer, who is your second-year breakout player?
So I like Brian Edwards. Apparently, the Raiders are lusting after Juju Smith-Schuster, but it's two completely different skill sets. Also, apparently, Derek Carr's not going anywhere. Brian Edwards banged up a little bit right now. I would try to get him on my dynasty rosters if I could, just based on the fact that everybody loves the new rookie class coming in. So now is actually the best time to buy these sophomore wide receivers. He was good. He had a really young breakout age at South Carolina, and he was a guy that he battled Deebo Samuel for snaps there. Obviously, everybody loves Deebo. I like Brandon Knight better personally. I think Mike might agree with me on that one. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Just a bit.
Yeah, so I don't worry about if they bring in other competition for Brian Edwards. I think he comes back healthy. I think he's going to be just fine. I don't know if Nelson Aguilar is going to stay or go. Honestly, don't care about Nelson Aguilar, bitter Eagles fan, but that's fine. Brian Edwards, a guy, I like him a lot. I was going to say T. Higgins. I think Anthony took him. Another guy I like too is Michael Pittman with Indy. And try to get him cheap, just not knowing what their quarterback situation is what I would do personally. So, but guys, I do have to bounce. I got to get ready for the Dynasty Rewind now. So I want to stop in and say hi. We got a show to do tonight. So we moved to Tuesdays.
Bye there, Mike.
So thank you. I'll gladly be other mic to mic off. So wanted to come on and say hi to one of my favorite redraft podcasts. Well, actually, both of them are right here, Fantasy and Frames and the FF Faceoff. So guys, thank you very much. Todd, good to see you again like always. And Jorge, I will see you Thursday.
Yes, sir. And I'll be commenting on your podcast at 9 tonight.
Sounds great. I'll see you guys later.
All right, guys.
Later, man.
So we have a question here from Christian Cabrera, 49ers fan here. So he's already in Mike's good graces. What's y'all's team? You will find out very shortly, Christian. So just hang out there. We talk about this off season, and now let's take it from a fantasy perspective. And let's briefly go into, I don't want to spend too much time with talking about this, but let's briefly go into Dynasty. All right. So Mike just alluded to it. He's the host of the Dynasty Rewind podcast. Here at Fantasy and Frames, we've been doing redraft and IDP, for as long as we've been around. We're starting to incorporate Dynasty content now because obviously the demand is there for that. And, it turns being a fantasy analyst into a 24/7 job, 365, which is fantastic because give me more football, give me more stuff to talk about. Fantastic. But in terms of just playing Dynasty, and let's take the analysis out of the equation, just in terms of playing Dynasty, in terms of startup drafts, let's start with you, Anthony. When do you like to have your startup drafts? Is it right after the Super Bowl? Is it after the draft? Like when does that matter to you?
I feel like I draft, like I don't stop drafting. I'm always, and I try to, I'm going to cut down this year. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to cut down. I feel like I'm lying to myself. But ideally the startup drafts, ideally after free agency. Now, if you have a good pulse on everything that's going on and you're drafting pre-free agency and you think a player is going to land somewhere, that's great. But, nothing's a guarantee. So ideally, after free agency and after the draft, once we have more knowns versus unknowns. Because, of course, you have the post-June 1 cuts and everything else. But ideally, right after the draft, the NFL draft.
Same go for you, Mike?
Yeah, I think if anybody's drafting before free agency, which whatever, I get it. You got that itch. You still want to play. You still want to be active in some form or fashion. I get it, but that's not my cup of tea. I agree with Anthony. I like to wait for at least give me the free agency. Give me that first round of players falling into teams. This way I know some situations because, listen, I said this in a tweet earlier. Situation is the silent killer in fantasy football. And what I mean by that is, no one ever likes to pay attention to it. They like to disregard. They like to assume that, well, this player is really good and he runs really fast and he runs a cone drill super fast. So he's going to be able to succeed on any team. It doesn't matter. So, but that's not always the case. So I like to wait for a little bit of situation. Take a guy like Wayne Gallman or Chris Carson, for example, running backs below Aaron Jones. Like, where are they going to go? And are they going to fall into a team where they're going to be in a committee, or are they going to fall into a team where they could potentially be the number one guy? And I think that that's kind of important to know before you head into any draft, dynasty, redraft, whatever.
To me, it's about the NFL draft, and right now everybody's trying to say this guy's the next this guy's going to be the starting running back. If Patrick Mahomes legitimately went to the Chicago Bears, what is he? He's not winning MVPs and Super Bowls right now. I don't care what anybody says.
Nope.
It's just not happening.
Nope.
Talent can only take you so far if the talent around you is not that great to begin with.
What if Sam Darnold landed in Joe Burrow's situation with those weapons around him?
Well, he's still a USC quarterback, so he'd go about as far as Carson Palmer did.
Okay. Really? What's wrong with Carson Palmer?
Yeah, he did well in Arizona. His rebound is
No, I'm making fun of Anthony because Anthony likes to profile running backs that come out of Penn State, so I'm profiling quarterbacks that come out of USC. So
I hate that. That's like actually one of my least favorite things about people projecting players from schools is just the fact that they say, "Oh, this school has never put out a top 10 quarterback." So what? I mean, talent comes and goes.
The Penn State running back narrative. The Penn State running back narrative was running backs can't stay healthy coming out of there.
Oh.
And Saquon stayed healthy for a year.
Well, it was a good year.
1 year.
Yeah, one good year.
It's a good year.
A really good year.
Let's not forget, Penn State also used to be known as linebacker U, and so they used to pump out linebackers left and right that actually did pretty well in the NFL. Switching to a defensive standpoint right there.
Listen, 2 things are certain for Anthony Cervino in the morning. Actually, 3 things.
Working out? Is that one?
1, he wakes up, he takes his morning pee just like the rest of us. 2, he goes to the gym. And 3, at some point before 11 a.m., he gets his balls bust by me. So
I feel like he has to. So just from that, I feel like he has to be a Blake Bortles fan.
I love Blake Bortles.
Just from the morning piss.
That's it.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
Mike Hauff, Hauff knows. It took a lot for me to get off of the Blake Bortles ship.
But you were on that bandwagon when they got to the AFC Championship, though. So I'll give you a little bit of credit.
And I stayed on it. I
know you did.
Well,
and it was all because he pissed like a champion.
That's it.
No, well, okay. Well, I never thought I'd take this segue, but let's go into Blake Bortles for a second. Look. What was it? 2015 it was. I remember this specifically because I was in a 2 QB league, and I had Mariota and Blake Bortles as my quarterbacks, which it just tells you how badly I was doing in that league to begin with. but Blake Bortles, this is like the prime point in his career when it came to garbage time fantasy points. Like this guy, like from a fantasy perspective, fantastic. The following year I had him on my bench. I don't know why. Maybe you call it blind loyalty, call it whatever you will. Stupidity, sure, I'll take that too. But he was on my bench, and I had him and Dak Prescott on in 2016, and it was Blake Bortles and the Jaguars versus the 49ers. That was option 1, go with Bortles there. Or do I go with Dak Prescott without Ezekiel Elliott against the Seattle Seahawks? I played Dak. I should have played Bortles. Bortles got me close to 30 points. Dak did not. And then, of course, you go to the AFC Championship. I mean, he's that one play away, or that pass away from potentially leading them to the Super Bowl. So
it's crazy.
I can understand Anthony's point of view there.
Can you imagine how like these little subtle actions or things that happen or don't happen? If Blake Bortles won a Super Bowl, he'd be starting in this league right now.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Yep.
Do you think? I know this is going to be a really stupid question, but like Blake Bortles, Jared Goff, are we drawing any comparisons there? Or is Goff by far the superior talent?
Yeah, superior talent.
I've told people for years to be afraid of Jared Goff. Be very afraid. I've been saying it forever, and Anthony's nodding because he knows it's true. I've been saying it forever. I've been said that the morning I woke up, because that contract too. From my recollection, and I know somebody on Twitter, I'm like, you're wrong. I have this here. I've been watching it all year. I feel like when that contract came out for Jared Goff, that extension, I feel like that came out of nowhere. I don't feel like there was a lot of negotiating or stories about it. All of a sudden, Jared Goff's got a new contract, and I said to Anthony on the show, or off air, or both. I said, this is a mistake. This is bad.
It was a Sean McVay contract.
They're not going to win a Super Bowl. It's going to be a bad contract. Jared Goff is, and now he's going to be in an offense that's going to be in a run-heavy offense, and we're never going to see true passing potential. And that's how we're going to view Jared Goff.
But do we care about winning games, or do we care about potential?
What do you mean? What?
Well, Jared Goff in his career, 42-27, and that's including one season with Jeff Fisher, a Super Bowl appearance, this season, a divisional round playoff appearance, yet he gets shown the door. And I get it. If Sean McVay gave up on him, I get it, for a guy who was 74-90-1 and 0-2 in the playoffs in a division playing against Mitchell Trubisky.
You guys ready for an argument? You guys ready for one?
Go for it.
But Matthew Stafford, he's going to take the Rams in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but the other thing that you're not keeping in mind is the team in which Matthew Stafford was playing for, as opposed to the team Jared Goff was playing for. And for Jared Goff, kind of similar to Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers. I know we're going to get to the Niners a little bit later. Jared Goff could not handle Sean McVay's offense the way in which Sean McVay wanted it handled. Okay. You guys ever see 22 Jump Street when Jonah Hill drives I think it's a Porsche or whatever it is? He jumps into the sports car and he's all nervous and he can't really handle it correctly. That's a Jared Goff in a Sean McVay offense. Couldn't really handle it. Now, Matthew Stafford is going to a team. He's going to an offensive mind that wants to use him the correct way. So you can go ahead and say, well, he's got this record and didn't win a lot of play. But look at the coaches that he's had. Look at what he's had to work with on defense. Now, one thing you could say about Matthew Stafford, he has had stellar wide receivers. That you can't go ahead and say he doesn't have good wide receivers to work with, because that would be a crock of horse shit. He had great wide receivers to work with.
His best running back. Look, I get what you're saying. Like by default, he was that team's offense. I mean, his best running back I think he's ever had in Detroit was Reggie Bush, and think about that for a second.
Best. My heart.
Joik Bell.
Joik Bell. Thank you. That's exactly who I was about to say.
That's another one.
We talk about Jared Goff here for a second. I'm not low on. Let me look this up. I'm low on Jared Goff, but I'm not as low as maybe other people are.
Where are you?
Where I'm at is for a 2 QB league, I would happily have him as my QB2. Here's what I'm projecting Jared Goff to be. I'm not talking about stat wise. I'm talking about situation.
Go ahead.
Look, he's going to a team. Anthony Lynn, like you said, Mike, is the offensive coordinator. It's going to be a run-heavy team. DeAndre Swift should get a bulk of the carries, even though they are going to bring in somebody else and potentially as, backup. Adrian Peterson said he wants to run until he's like 45, 50 years old today. So take that into consideration, if you will.
Yeah.
But, let's think about this offense. Like, Kenny Galladay coming back, probably no Marvin Jones coming back. So you have DeAndre Swift, you have TJ Hawkinson, and you have Jared Goff. This eerily reminds me of Kirk Cousins 2 seasons ago when Stefanski was the offensive coordinator. He wasn't throwing the ball that much because if you remember the previous season with John DeFilippo as the offensive coordinator, that's when the Vikings were just throwing it willy-nilly. That Thursday night football game where it was the Rams versus the Vikings was one of the most watched Thursday night football games because that was a high-scoring affair. That offense ceased when Stefanski came on the play. Stefanski's like, oh, I got Kubiak upstairs. He's telling me I need to run the ball more with Dalvin Cook. I probably should do that and take the ball out of Kirk Cousins' hands. What did that result in? Kirk Cousins being a more efficient quarterback, 22 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, I believe, on the season versus the double-digit interceptions he had previously when he was throwing it all over the field. I can see that happening for Jared Goff this year. So he may not be like, Dwayne Haskins bad. I wouldn't put that on anybody.
Well, yeah.
But I think he could be a serviceable backup quarterback or a streaming option as the season goes on, just from his efficiency standpoint. He may get you the touchdowns. The yardage may not be there. Okay, so he's definitely not going to get you on yardage. But maybe the touchdowns and the lack of interceptions could make him a startable option going forward this season. That's just my
Jorge, listen, I agree with that sentiment. I would like him if it's a 2 QB league. I like him as my second quarterback. Sure, absolutely. Me and Anthony just argue about that trade in general and who's better in that. I get maybe not who's better in that offense, but just whatever. But 2 QB league, and Anthony, I think you'd agree too. I mean, you dig Goff in that spot. If you're in a 2 QB league, if you have Jared Goff,
Right.
are you hating it, Anthony? Are you looking for a new quarterback as your QB2 or
in Detroit?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna hate it if Dynasty's next breakout, Quentin Cephas is their top wide receiver.
I mean,
that is the thing, man.
Him and Geronimo Allison,
the only 2 signed wide
on
receivers. Yeah. All right. So now that we got some takes here, in terms of the second-year breakout player that I was interested in, well, somebody took T. Higgins. I was going to say Brandon Ayuk, but that wouldn't be fair to Mike.
Fine. You could say Brandon Ayuk. Go for it, man.
Look, his snap percentage, like you go week 4 through week 16, he didn't play less than 85% of snaps on the field. Like he was the 49ers offense. This is with multiple quarterbacks scoring in double-digit fantasy points. Like whether it's his Swiss Army knife ability or whether it was down the stretch of the season where he was more an efficient wide receiver in terms of yards after the catch. Like he is. I don't want to say, I hate saying quarterback because that's one, it's too early to say that. Second, he's a very talented player.
Let me ask this. Let me do a round. I'm gonna hijack the show, Jorge.
Go for it.
Let's just say, and let's take ADP out for a hot second because we know we're sitting here in February, so we don't have an ADP to go by yet.
Sure.
Jorge, I'll start with you.
Okay.
Redraft league, you can have Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. Who are you going with?
I'm going the one who hasn't been injured that often. I'm going to say that's Brandon Ayuk versus Deebo Samuel.
Todd?
Availability is the best ability.
That's it. Todd, how about you?
Yeah, I'd actually go Brandon Ayuk as well. I just think he's more used above the line of scrimmage than the Debo.
Anthony?
it's tough because I like both players a lot. Right now, I would probably go Ayuk because of that run he had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would go Ayuk as well, which leads me. The only thing I would just say, Jorge, and I think because I told you like go with it because I think Ayuk's a player who has to get brought up here.
Right.
Just like listen, CD Lamb is another one. CD Lamb with a potential full season of Dak Prescott could be the sky's the freaking limits, but. I think actually I'm going to say now out loud, I think CeeDee Lamb's the number one wide receiver in Dallas next year for fantasy. That just happened. But
damn Amari.
But Brent and Anthony comments that he's a Cowboys guy, and I don't know if I've gotten his full thoughts on that yet. But I think Brandon Ayuk is he's mentioned. What I'm curious most about Brandon Ayuk is this enthusiasm for Ayuk and this perception now that the way in which Deebo Samuel plays is he more susceptible to getting injured, making Ayuk more, salacious or more exciting for fantasy. Does that drive up his ADP too high? That's something I'm really curious about with Brandon Ayuk. But Anthony, I sounded off on the Cowboys without you allowing to get in there, and I'm done hijacking the show. I'm going to sit back now. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
The only thing that's going to hurt Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel is if the 49ers bring back Jordan Matthews. Number one.
I hate you so much.
I do believe CD Lamb is going to be the number one wide receiver in Dallas this year. And I also believe when it's all said and done, CD Lamb is going to be the number one wide receiver to come out of this class over Justin Jefferson.
And being a Niner
I think
homer,
there's a lot more special. I see a lot more special out of CD Lamb. I'm not saying Justin Jefferson isn't great.
And I'll jump in really quick, and I'll just say, Anthony knows this. I was a Justin Jefferson supporter before it was cool to be a Justin Jefferson supporter. Yeah. I was a Justin Jefferson supporter when he was doing bad in camp, and everybody was ripping me apart saying I was an idiot. And I'm a 49er fan who loves Brandon Ayuk, but I agree wholeheartedly with Anthony on that one. I think CeeDee Lamb will be the best wide receiver out of this class when it's all said and done.
And you also agree on Jordan Matthews.
I hate you on the Jordan Matthews. Don't take too much.
I'm going to contact Will Harris over at Viridian Global and have him make a T-shirt for you saying I'm the biggest Justin Jefferson fan out there, and see if we can sell that puppy for you.
You should say I was a fan of Justin Jefferson before it was cool.
There's the slogan.
Brian
Will
Edwards
Harris. There's the slogan. Another player I'm really excited about is J.K. Dobbins. Look, and only playing not more than 60% of the snaps down the stretch of last season. Let's go over the last few games of the season. 71 rushing yards, 53, 64, 77. He went off in week 17 for 160 for what it's worth. But let's look at the fantasy points. 13 in half PPR scoring. 13.1, 13.3, 14.6, 17, 13.7 and 28 in week 17. No Mark Ingram. Gus Edwards I don't know whether he's a restricted free agent or just regular free agent.
He's restricted.
Apparently, he's actually expected to re-sign. Is actually what I've seen in recent days.
But here's the thing.
He's probably going to need a second-round tender.
Even if he does come back, look how efficient J.K. Dobbins was splitting carries with this guy. Not only that, when in scoring position within the 5-yard line, J.K. Dobbins dominated touches and rushing attempts when in scoring position for running backs. Now, granted, Gus Edwards was right there with him, but it right there just below the number of attempts. But Dobbins is putting up flex numbers that I think just can only go up from here. The investment is in Dobbins. He is the younger back, and of course, you're in an offense where they have one receiving option in Mark Andrews. I'm not a fan of Hollywood Brown. I shouldn't say that. I'm not a fan of Marquise Brown. I don't think he's earned the title Hollywood yet. But I am a fan of J.K. Dobbins, and I think he can do a lot of good things from this offense. They've started feeding him the ball in the playoffs, and I'm a huge fan of what you can see out of him going forward. All right, let's wrap up this show with a little debate session here. And since we're all NFC fans, who was it that just mentioned this earlier? Christian Cabrera. I hope you've been watching. Hope you've been paying attention, because now you're about to find out. I am a Washington football team fan. Anthony, you are a Dallas Cowboy fan. Mike, you are a 49er fan, and Todd, you are a New Orleans Saints fan.
Stop
it. We're going to go around the frames right now and tell you why we think our team is in the best position to make the playoffs in 2021. Let's start with the Cowboys fan. Anthony, what are your thoughts there?
So do I think or can the Cowboys make the playoffs? And I forgot the actual stat. I don't know if it's 4 teams in each conference or 4 teams total, but I'm a big Colin Cowherd guy, and he always brings us up, and it's almost like seamless to where every year there are 4 teams. Again, I don't know if it's conference or collectively that are new to the playoffs. And that means teams like the 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys could get in. Teams like the New Orleans Saints might not be in because of their situation. So, there's a realistic shot we see Dallas in. They're going to hopefully retain Dak Prescott. I think a lot of the offensive line injuries, that was an anomaly. Do they need to do something with Tyron Smith, whether it's, if a Penei Sewell drops to number 10? Do they take him and make Tyron Smith expendable, things like that? But they have enough offensive pieces to do great things with Dak back. And defensively, they need a lot of help. I think moving off of Mike Nolan was a really good idea. They brought in, was it Gus Bradley?
No, it was Dan Quinn.
Oh, yeah, Dan Quinn, remember?
Yeah, 6 and 1/2 dozen the other with those two.
Come on.
Both from Seattle.
He's going to be an upgrade.
Anthony for years has been saying, sorry, Anthony, you can finish your point, but Anthony has said for years on the FF Faceoff, Dan Quinn needs to go to he needs to go back to Rutgers. Dan Quinn's gonna be
and here we are.
But I'm sorry, I'll let you finish your point. But I've said this to you and Anthony, I think you even agree with me. I think that Dan Quinn is one of those guys, probably a better coordinator than he is a coach, than an NFL head coach. And I would not be surprised, and based on his performance in Dallas, with the weapons that he has to use, if he might earn himself another head coaching opportunity, or at least another round of interviews.
Well, first he needs players.
Well, look at
Dallas.
Ton of them on the wide receiver side, though.
Mike McCarthy, people are on the fence with Mike McCarthy. I think he's better than his reputation, and as long as he has a healthy team, I think we're going to see Dallas in the playoffs. Now, could it be by default? Look at that division. What's Philadelphia going to be? They need to make a decision on Carson Wentz yesterday, because you're not going to build the team the same you will around Wentz as you will around Jalen Hurts. Nick Sirianni, I can't believe he got a head coaching job over a lot of these other guys. Washington, I think they're going to be a legitimate threat. And then you have the New York Giants. What are they going to be? Are we ever going to see the true potential of Daniel Jones. So, yeah, I do think Dallas has a realistic shot of making the playoffs.
Let me ask you a question about Ezekiel Elliott. Now, Mike McCarthy in his time in Green Bay was never really known as the running back guru when it comes to putting out a running back that's successful year in and year out. We saw Ezekiel Elliott struggle last year. He just happened to go through COVID, had COVID earlier last year. Maybe that had something to do with his lack of performance. Maybe it was the offensive line. Maybe it's a combination of both. Do you think this is a bounce back year for Zeke?
Absolutely. And if we're talking about fantasy football wise, fantasy Twitter is already dragging him through the mud without taking in consideration all of the injuries they had on the line and the injury to Dak Prescott. No, Ezekiel Elliott, his yards per game and his breakout runs or his big play runs, they have regressed ever since he's been in the league, but he's still one of the best pure running backs in the league. And if those holes are opened up and Dak Prescott's maneuvering the football around, I think Ezekiel Elliott's going to be fine. And he's a player you might be able to get with the 10th or 12th pick in your first round, and that's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. Who would have thought?
He has never. I think he's missed one game to injury.
Right.
And that was this year.
Mike, are you about to say something?
I was going to say
still 14th in fantasy points per game, despite everything.
Yeah, I was going to say I agree wholeheartedly with what Anthony is saying there, and I criticize fantasy Twitter a lot, and maybe it's because I have a reason to. Maybe I'm a prick. Maybe I have a good reason. I don't know. Maybe it's both. But I don't think that you can be married to one specific philosophy. Me and Anthony talk about this a lot off air. Like, for example, running backs don't matter. That's the stupidest shit I've ever heard, because guess what? Jorge, have you ever been in a league in which a running back does not count towards your final score?
Last time I checked, they count towards my score, yes.
Okay, so then do they matter if you need to win the game?
I need points, so yes, they do matter.
Cool. Okay, so now everybody's going to, as Anthony said, everybody's going to drag Ezekiel Elliott through the mud. Because he didn't have the best year last year. They're worried about that perception
let me interrupt you
of
now.
Mike McCarthy.
Before you go on, in the first 3 out of 5 games with Dak, Zeke's finished number 3, number 7, 13, 15, 4. So 3 top 7 finishes, including 2 in the top 4 with Dak Prescott. It didn't Mike McCarthy offense.
But no one's going to pay attention to that. They're just going to pay attention to the overall perception of what happened over that year. And Zeke's price will fall. So my whole philosophy, based on what Anthony is saying, it's like a PSA for fantasy. And I understand he's making a different case. He's talking about the Cowboys and the potential, like why they could go ahead and take the NFC in 2021. But my whole thing, if I could do a PSA for fantasy, don't be married to one philosophy. The best fantasy players out there, and they might not even tell you this because they don't want you to know this because they want to be the best. Keep your eyes open, keep your head on a swivel, and just open-minded. Look at what happened with Zeke, and look at what Anthony's saying. Look at how Zeke was when Dak was there in the lineup. And that'll tell you what you need to know about Zeke. And if Zeke does fall in price, because the trendy thing to do on Twitter all spring and all summer long is going to be to shit all over Zeke, you know what? If you can get him at a good price, like Anthony just referenced, God bless your hearts. Go and get him and enjoy the ride.
Nice. All right,
we're spending second-round picks on Todd Gurley when we knew he had bad knees in 2 seasons.
This is true.
I like the goal line situations. I was wrong on Todd Gurley. Totally.
No, you liked him until the end of last season.
You also liked his 1.8 yard per carry.
Yeah,
I liked him to the midpoint of last season. I have no problem admitting I was wrong.
Well,
I was wrong on Todd Gurley.
I mean, if he's on the 1 yard line, that 1.8 works out in your favor.
Yeah, that was sick.
There we go.
Let's go, Mike. San Francisco. Why do you think they're going to be able to make it back to the playoffs this year?
Well, first, it was a tough year, so I'm going to be a little dramatic. And for the viewers here, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be dramatic. I'm going to pour one out. Here we go.
All right.
For what happened to my Niners this year on the defensive side of the ball, which plagued their year. Now, the one thing I'll say, they're currently 15th in salary cap. So they have holes to fill. They have secondary holes to fill. They're probably not going to bring back Richard Sherman. Doesn't sound like Richard Sherman is going to come back. They've got guys like Jimmy Ward they need to sign, so on and so forth. So they gotta focus on that. Now, if you're asking me, and I believe the question that was posed in the show notes was why your NFC team is in the best position to make a playoff run in 2021. Well, here's the deal. If they get the band back together, if they get healthy, if they can stay healthy, I think they could definitely make a run. Now, how far they can make a run, that all depends on Jimmy Garoppolo.
I was going to say, does that band include Jimmy G as your front lead singer?
Okay, and I understand this is the hot topic. I personally do not believe that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to win us the Super Bowl. I love him to death. I view Jimmy Garoppolo in the same vein as I do Jared Goff, in the sense that I think he's a good NFL quarterback. I think he can be a contributor to an NFL team, but within that offense, within that scheme, I don't know that he's the right answer. And I think that the Niners figured that out. And I think the Niners are saving face by saying, no, he's our guy. But also we hear that they're heavily interested in Deshaun Watson. So I think that if they can't get anybody, or if they can't trade up in the draft for, say, a Justin Fields or for say, a Zach Wilson, then they'll go into the year with Jimmy Garoppolo as their guy, and they'll act hopelessly devoted, and Kittle will wear his t-shirts with Jimmy Garoppolo on it, and everybody will be happy, and we'll see what can happen. But I think they'll only go as far as Jimmy Garoppolo will let them in the playoffs. But I think this is a team, as long as they're healthy, man, they're right back in it. The Cardinals showed their worths. I know everybody panicked when DeAndre Hopkins was traded there, but really, I think the bloom is off the rose there in Arizona as far as Cliff Kingsbury is concerned. I know he has a beautiful, beautiful home there when he does his draft.
Sure.
But some terrible decision-making in the final week of the season. The Seattle Seahawks are going through some things now. There could be a long and winding road, as the Beatles would say, to a divorce in Seattle between Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. So we'll see how that goes. And then the Rams. I think the Rams are going to be the heavy hitter. And I was wrong on the Rams last year. I think they're going to be a heavy hitter this year. We'll see how long Matthew Stafford can take them. But Niners can take that division, maybe, potentially. But it's all going to be on Jimmy Garoppolo, and they're going to have to add more running backs, because a lot of those running backs that we were used to talking about, a lot of them are going to be gone. We're going to have Raheem Mostert. Jeff Wilson will be back. But we're going to need more. We know Kyle Shanahan offense. We're going to need more.
Right. All right, Todd.
Actually, amongst all we're talking here, Niners the best shot.
All right, we're going to agree to disagree with that. Todd, real quick.
Until you play Tampa Bay.
Todd, really quickly, why are you?
I'm saying amongst the teams we're talking about.
And actually,
I got you.
Mike just inferenced it. Unfortunately, we actually have to play Tampa Bay next season.
Twice.
And as a Saints fan, yeah, we have to play them twice. And as a Saints fan, I'm not comfortable with our playoff situation next season. In recent years, I have been. We've been Super Bowl or bust with the Drew Brees window. And
so you don't think with Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston they can't even make a wild card appearance in the playoffs next year? Like, I'm talking about make the playoffs in any capacity.
Yeah, but that's the thing is I'm a Saints fan, and our expectation is not to make the playoffs. We've been doing that. Our expectation is to win a Super Bowl. We've been Super Bowl or bust for the last couple seasons, and we've been a bust the last couple seasons. Behind Drew Brees, we haven't been able to get it done. I mean, we've seen what the expectations are when getting the ball downfield. Drew Brees has not been able to get the ball downfield, and it's struggled with Mike Thomas and AK as our running backs and our wide receiver one. I mean, not getting the ball downfield is a huge factor in our success.
Well, if you can't do it with Drew Brees at quarterback, even though he had been declining in recent years, what are the chances you're going to do that with Taysom Hill or somebody else?
I mean, hell no, we aren't doing it with Taysom Hill. He's a special team specialist.
He's fantasy football gold if he stays on the field and he rushes a lot. But
rushes a lot is the thing. You really take into account what do you have? 3 starts in 2020?
Something like that.
2 of them were against Atlanta, which Atlanta was literally one of the worst defenses against quarterbacks in the league. And if you take away Taysom Hill's rushing ability, then he really wasn't irrelevant as a quarterback at all. So, like, that's the thing is, even Cam Jordan said it during the offseason this year that Jameis Winston has actually thrown for 4,500, 5,000 yards. No way in hell can Taysom Hill do that. So that is my one question mark going into the offseason is what are we going to do with the quarterback situation?
All right.
I mean, we got our wide receiver with Mike. Yeah, we got our wide receiver with Mike Thomas. He's going to move the chains. I mean, you have Alvin Kamara, who is across the league one of the best running backs in the league. So, I mean, you have some of the top options on the offensive side. But the fact that you have Drew Brees as quarterback is questionable. And I hate to say it as a Saints fan that is questionable, but man, I don't like our chances, especially with Tom Brady.
I apologize to Saints fans for bumming you out. I know we were trying to make the case for the New Orleans Saints, but nope, sorry. Moving on to Washington football team, wrapping up really quick. You look at all the teams in the NFC East, everyone has horrible offensive lines. Like they're just not good. And what capitalizes on a bad offensive line? A good defensive line. Who's better in the NFC East in terms of the defensive line talent than the Washington football team?
No one.
No one. And you have another year with Chase Young. You have another year with Montez Sweat, who I think is the unheralded star of that defense, outside of Chase Young. You have a secondary with Landon Collins coming back. And let's say Landon Collins comes back and he's not the same Landon Collins that we all remember. Cameron Curl, one of the best rated safeties according to Pro Football Focus last year, played lights out in relief of Landon Collins. Maybe they're a cornerback away. Ronald Darby came over from the Philadelphia Eagles to Washington. He was actually somewhat respectable last year as a cornerback. That blew my mind. And he's probably earned another contract with Ron Rivera and the Washington football team. I just think defense wins championships. We saw that happen in the Super Bowl. I think the competition in terms of, offensive line versus defensive line, and I really believe that, football is won in the trenches, as, the cliche, says. And I think Washington has by far the best advantage in that situation than any other team in the division. And is the division going to be as poor as it was this year? I don't know. I think Dallas will do better, obviously, if Dak Prescott's still there. Philadelphia, we don't know what's going on there. New York, don't know what's going on there. But I do know this defensive line for the Washington football team is no joke. This defense is no joke. And they have the ability to take it and to shut down anybody, which is why I'm pro Washington in terms of them making the playoffs. And with that,
are you pro Washington? I'm sorry, I apologize, but
go for it.
I'm a Washington guy. Are you pro Washington to maybe because we have a Dallas fan in the house? Would you say that Washington has enough to defeat Dallas if Dallas has Dak healthy for 16 games? Or are you gearing towards wild card?
That pass rush alone has something to do with it.
That's what I'm saying. The pass rush is very interesting, but
that 6-win pass rush.
Oh, come on.
7-win pass rush. Thank you very much. 7-win.
Then you're also talking about those 7-win.
I just want to know
receiving core
because me and Todd, I'm in the NFC West. Todd's in the NFC South. Jorge and Anthony, you guys are in the NFC East. Let's end up with a little bit of fun, my man. You guys both pave a way for some playoffs. Who's winning the division there?
All right.
There you go.
Washington's
not winning.
I think Washington.
They don't even have a quarterback.
That's the issue.
Literally no quarterback in Washington.
Yeah,
no quarterback yet.
One, man.
Look, I would be happy, and I said this in a couple other shows. If Ryan Fitzpatrick wanted to come to the nation's capital and sling the ball to Terry McLaurin and Logan Thomas, I would take Ryan Fitzpatrick as my quarterback, throw in that defense, and just let them go hawk.
No.
Look, Dallas, my concern with Dallas is like, how are they going to protect Dak Prescott? You mentioned, Anthony, earlier, if they do draft Sewell and they move him to left tackle and then do something with Tyron Smith, they also have questions at center.
Well,
like there are a lot of questions along that offensive line for Dallas.
I mean, if all healthy, you have Zach Martin, Lau Collins, Tyron Smith. They're not terrible. You have Tyler Biadasz in his second year at center. The line's going to be fine if they're healthy. I will say this. You don't want Ryan Fitzpatrick. The perfect quarterback in Washington is Teddy Bridgewater. He is the perfect quarterback for that team.
But he's locked into North Carolina. He's locked into Carolina.
They want him out. They want him
out. According to Carolina, he ain't. Carolina wants to get out of there fast.
No, but really, and I'm not a Teddy Bridgewater guy, but he's the perfect fit for that team.
He's not. He is the soft porn of an ideal quarterback.
He literally is the soft porn.
How am I arguing for Teddy over everybody?
You put yourself in that spot, dude. I didn't ask you to do that. I'm telling you. He's a soft porn of an answer at quarterback. I agree with Jorge, and I said it on our prediction show talking about quarterbacks. Ryan Fitzpatrick would be a great option in Washington.
I don't know how we got into talking about soft porn quarterbacks, but I think that's a good place to maybe stop for today. I want to say thank you very much.
Another time, though. We
will. That is for darn sure. Look, I want to thank Anthony and Mike for coming on, guys. I can't truly say to you how glad I am you guys are on with us today. Anthony, over the course of the past few years since 2017, I would remember that you would DM me like, hey, try this with social media or try this with social media, do this with that, like tweet at this time. Don't do like the little, minor details that really help to build one's brand. You've always been there. You've always been helpful. Really appreciate that. We'll always be grateful to you. Mike, you and I, we've been getting to know each other the past year or so. Just a great guy. Both of these guys, great follows at the NFL, at the Real NFL Guru for Anthony, at the FF Realist for Mike. Thank you guys very much for being on. Todd, as always, thank you very much for coming on. For those fantasy baseball people out there, follow Todd and the rest of the Bullpen Bros over at the Perfectly Framed podcast at fantasyandframes.com. So
after this, actually,
they'll be doing a live stream or a podcast recording right after this. So for everybody here, thank you very much. 4-Eyed fans, we'll catch you next time.